What is up? What is up? What's up? It's Friday the 4th of May, 3:30 Central Time, and welcome to the live stream. Really glad that you have decided to join me. I'm really projecting my voice into the future because there's no one watching right now. But if in the future you're looking back now, hello from the past. It's nice here. I hope it's nice wherever you are. But welcome, my name is Gabe, and you're watching Learn Lettering Live. And so this is my lettering podcast that I do. This is not a podcast, heads up. This is a live stream that I do every Friday. And the goal of this live stream is to teach lettering. You maybe could glean that from the name, but maybe not. But if it's not clear to you, you're here to learn lettering. That's why you're here. And I'm really excited today. We're going to be doing something kind of fun. So if you look back at any of my previous videos, we've been working on a few different things kind of here and there, trying to find a good balance, because we'll start a project, a lettering project, and they honestly can take a while, at least for me. Like I see people post things on their Instagram and I'm like, you post so much. How do you do it so fast? But for me, it takes a lot of time because I'm pretty obsessive. And so I will start something with you guys, and then we'll get like a fifth of the way into it, and then it'll be time to call it quits for the day. So it's either like have 5-hour live streams, or I've got to break one project into like a bunch of different videos. So I'm not really sure if that's the best method. Like if you really want to sit around and watch me just fill in strokes that I've made, maybe that's entertaining. And then also, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, so today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're not going to be working on the same piece did last time, which technically last week my audio glitched out, so there was no live stream. But yes, so anyway, the reason I do this live stream is because I want to teach. I like to teach people lettering. I want to teach people lettering. It's a skill that I've picked up, and I'm no master, but I have done a good bit. And I really just learned by watching people. I learned by really observing people on Instagram and becoming a student of other people's work and their process. And I found that the best way to learn is little by little. How to eat an elephant, they say, one bite at a time. So that's what we're doing here. There's a lot with lettering. There's a lot to be learned. And we're going to go bit by bit and learn as we go. So yeah. So anyway, so that's me. I'm glad you're here. If you haven't, which again, no one's watching yet, so you in the future. Hello, future you. If you have not liked and subscribed, that'd be really cool because believe it or not, just that little button click does so much for me. And a subscribe is just makes me so happy. So you might as well do both if you like me. If you don't like me and you think I suck, then just keep that to yourself. But we're gonna get started for the day, and yeah, I don't think I have any more rambles. So yeah, welcome to Learn Lettering Live. Okay, so here we are in my iPad. Well, I'm not in my iPad, but you know what I mean. But anyway, so here we are. And you might be looking at this interesting shape and say like, what is that? And I will tell you, it's not a circular toothpaste blob, because I don't know about you, when I look at this, I kind of see toothpaste. But anyway, so this is my little unpaid promotion today. There's a guy on YouTube, you should look him up. I don't know what his YouTube like exact name is, but if you search Elliot is a cool guy, you'll find it on YouTube. He is a cool guy. He's very funny. I really have a thing for like Australian YouTube content creators. Like I follow a lot of Australians for some reason, but I found this guy and he is freaking hilarious. He's just a really funny dude. And so his live streams are so funny. I've actually been really insecure. I'm like, can my live streams be that funny? But I just don't think I'm that funny. But he's awesome. And so you should check out his work. But one of his tutorials, he taught me how to do this really cool shape. It's really fun. And this is the first one I made. It's really cool. It's like my phone background now, which is very nice. But anyway, so he taught us how to like take these, basically in Photoshop, how to make these cool shapes and these cool patterns and textures. And maybe this isn't maybe you're like, that's basic, but I like it. I think it's kind of cool. And so what we're going to do is we're going to interact with this shape using typography. So we're going to create some lettering that goes alongside this. I was starting with something, but I'll maybe show you that later, maybe not. But yeah, so might as well just jump right in. So I have been feeling a little insecure this week. You know, the old saying, if a live stream is streamed, but there's no one there to watch it, was it actually streamed? That's how I feel sometimes. And I think just with the whole YouTube deal, like, it's a hustle. It's hard. It really is. Like, literally the last few times that I've tried to film videos, like this week I filmed like for an hour and realized that my screen recording preset was wrong, and it was just my face, my lovely face, talking for an hour and nothing on my screen. So just like things like that keep happening, or like my audio cuts out. So I'm like, what is going on? It's like I hit a wall every time I start to create something. And so I felt really insecure, especially seeing this like really cool Australian dude who's got a really great taste in design and is really funny. And I'm just like, man, so easy to compare. And we talk about that kind of stuff a lot on the live stream and just on the channel, because I think my goal is like, I want people to help become better people and not just better designers, though optimally both of those would happen. But if only one, hopefully a better person, I think. But anyway, so I felt a little discouraged. And so I'm making this lettering post to myself today. And so what we're going to do, my idea for my lettering is I'm just going to write it in normal person handwriting. Maybe you're enough. And yeah, so this is like my reminder to myself, like, hey, maybe you're enough. Maybe you don't have to be Mr. Super Cool Australian dude and have an accent and make funny videos. Like, maybe you are enough just as you are. And that's one of those things to where it's like, feels kind of hard to believe sometimes. It's just so easy to compare. It's kind of natural to the human condition, I guess. But anyway, so that's what we're going to be working on today. And I really want, so I am also inspired by this guy, Elliot. He uses a lot of, in his stuff, he uses a really cool thin serif font, but it's like a soft serif. So what I mean by that, learning time. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hide this for now. So this would be a serif. It's not like a particularly great serif because I just sketched it really quickly. But yes, this would be a serif, and serif means, or I don't actually know what the word itself means, but what a serif is it's these little guys right here, those things, you know? And basically what they do is they kind of stick off from the edge of the ends of the letter forms typically. And it's, you know, you're probably used to seeing this like Times New Roman or all those fonts that are in Microsoft Word. You're going to find a lot of serifs. And serifs are often used when you're having a large block of text. They're pretty legible. And not exclusively, but a lot of times books are written with serif fonts, especially really, really small, which mine's not amazing. But, you know, it's supposed to be pretty legible. Serifs, as we talked about before, are based off old Latin letter forms, which were inscribed into like the temples and Greek, Roman. I don't really know my history very well, but yeah, that's what they're based off of. So that's where we get which parts. Oops, wrong color. Bummer. Which parts are thick and which parts are thin comes from that. But anyway, so this is a serif, and so when I was saying earlier, this guy Elliot uses soft serif. What I mean by that, which this is not the best example, let's see. So this would be kind of like what a serif normally is, right? I'm using a big pen so it looks soft. So what his would be, and they're a little slender too, which this is what I was feeling inspired by these. So if we're doing an A here, and again, I'm just kind of sketching quickly here, so it's not gonna be the best. Okay, so soft serif, what I mean by that is that there's no hard edges really. Even like right here, I'd probably smooth those guys out a little bit, the inside corners. But essentially, it's like everything feels really soft and really smooth. Like we're not gonna have, traditionally you'd have something kind of like this, a hard edge. But instead, everything is just nice and smooth. It feels like a little goopy in the best way of using that word. And I'm just kind of refining a little bit, though we're not gonna actually use this guy. But anyway, so this is what I'm liking, this idea of using kind of these goopier serif letter forms, because they just have a lot of character, I think, and I really like that about them. As you can see right now, I'm kind of elaborating on where my thicks and thins are. And the goal is for this is just like get really dramatic with it. So like we have really thick thicks and really thin thins, which is pretty fun. Even doing like some weird things here. I don't know that I like that, but you get the idea. So we have thicks and we have thins, and there's a good bit of contrast between them. And the thing about what I was saying about them being soft is that we have these really nice soft round edges, even like up in here is soft, instead of having sort of these more harsh and hard angles. Everything's nice and goopy. So we're going to be pulling from that for this. And so we're going to start with what I always start with, which is a typographic stencil. I may do it in orange just for fun, and I'm going to change my pen too because I want a little more precision. Nope. Let's see, maybe recent. So my studio pen, as you can see, it helps my lines get very smooth. So I might use that one. Anyway, so I'll be using this pen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a typographic stencil. And what a typographic stencil is it's basically, think of it as like the wireframe. That's probably more still an art term, but what it is it's like the scaffolding for a house. Scaffoldings don't go in houses. It's the bones of the deal. So yeah, it's the bones. It's like when you see a house and it's under construction and you got all the wood beams, but there's no wall, and there's no paint. That's what this is. So we're putting in the foundation. We're putting in the stuff that is going to give structure to the rest of the house with the analogy we're using. And then we'll come back and add the paint and the crown molding and the hardwood floors later. But yeah, so I want my letters. I like that idea of these really dramatic kind of serifs. I really am drawn to. And so I want this M. I've seen M's like this before, and I don't know where. But I'm just going to try to emulate as best as my memory serves. So they feel pretty fancy, which is what I'm going for. Not that the final product would feel fancy, but something that's kind of fun is like I'm taking something that feels really elegant and I'm going to make it have that like kind of goopy, soft serif feel, which will make it feel less elegant, which I think is kind of a fun contrast. And I like that this is what I was thinking. I like there's a slant to my M, so I can kind of continue that upwards. And I'm going to do that for the letter forms. And what I'm trying to do here is I may connect the letters like a script. I may leave them separate, but I am going to, again, this is just the stencil. So, we're not married to this, but this is just where we're starting off. Not. Also, one of the things I've tried to do with this live stream, almost said podcast again, is to really just have fun. And so that's what we're going to be doing here. I'm not trying to follow any specific playbook. I'm just going to enjoy myself and try new things. And if we hate it, then, can change it, but if not, we might discover something new. A lot of times I find that these the happy accents really are the way to go, that you are sure of style or whatever, but then a happy accent comes along and you find something new, you discover something interesting. And in a past live stream I talked about how in my mind I kind of treat lettering as as archaeology, which, if you don't know what I mean, basically it's like these letter forms. This is going to sound a little, I don't know what word you'd attach to this, but basically that, like, it's almost like these things already exist and I am just uncovering them. You know, like as an archaeologist looks at bones, and like it's already there, the structure's already there. We're just trying to find what has been laid out before us. And so in a way, the way I approach the design process for lettering is that I'm trying to discover what maybe is already hiding there in plain sight that I just can't see yet. So let's see, what are we using here? I'm gonna kind of fade out this line because I don't really need that guy. But honestly, I really like my letters so far. They're really quirky and they have an interesting look to them, and they're playful, and I really like it because remember, the phrase is like, maybe you're enough. And so that should feel playful. It should feel creative and loose and fun. And so that's what we're going for. And I am really digging it. I'm going to make another line in a new layer that matches this line, which that's not I didn't make a perfect line. So sorry, but I'm going to bring it down, and then I'm going to make this a little bit lighter. And what this is going to serve as is kind of like a guide for the next word. So remember, our phrase is maybe you're enough. And I want to tell you that you are. And I'm kind of telling myself as well. We all need a reminder. So I have this M up here. It's just so wild. Like, look at that M. Dang. That's beautiful. Like, that's awesome. I like it. And so we have this gorgeous M right here. I mean, maybe it doesn't look pretty yet, but it will, I promise. One thing I am going to do is looking at okay, so this is a good little rule here. Or not a rule, but something to take note of is that right here where my A is connecting, like it has this kind of swoosh up thing. Over here, my B, it doesn't swoosh up, which it wouldn't, but I was worried about this feeling weird, and it kind of does. I wonder what it would be like if my A had more of like a traditional deal. I think that I like that better because with the B coming a little bit behind it, what we're doing is we're creating consistency. Oh, this is a good thing that just came to mind. Great rule of thumb in graphic design that I've heard said a lot is that once is an accident, maybe twice is also an accident. Well, I'm just botching this phrase. Like, once is a mistake, but twice is intentional. So like if you have something and it's maybe it's a little strange, or maybe it breaks the box of what's normal when it comes to lettering or anything in design. Once is an accident, like it's like, oh, maybe they just weren't paying attention. But then when it's done multiple times, you start to build the idea that this is an intentional design decision. And even if it's something that's a little unconventional, people will typically be willing to buy into it and accept it because they can see the intentionality in that you have done it multiple times. So you'll also note here that my serifs are flat. Like, you could also make your serifs to where they are angled like this, which has a different look, but I didn't want to do that. I like the idea of this feeling like stair steppers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like our letters are going up step to step. So that's why I'm not doing any kind of serifs that have an angle to them. And again, this is really just a template because I don't really know how my serifs are going to look. I'm just trying to get an idea. And so there's a good, I need to find another color now that I'm using this one. So there's in typography, we have what's called our X height, which this is not going to be easy to see since our letters all start on different spots. But your X height is basically the height of this main part of your letters. So your X height is supposed to be consistent. Like if I were to copy this, I wasn't super meticulous, but in theory, that would be the same. Sorry guys. That would be the same from shape to shape. we're definitely not there. And so maybe it would be worth me adjusting that A and bringing it down a bit to match these other ones. So like the E looks pretty solid, but that's the height of the E, that's the height of the B, the Y. The A is like seems a little tall in comparison. This is actually a really great example. And so now what I could do is I come back to my maybe, I can use the freehand tool, thank you, select this guy. And now I can shrink him down a little bit because I want my letters to feel consistent. And maybe that looks a little funny, but I can always adjust where it's placed as well. But this is what helps bring consistency. And so like if you're designing a font, you're going to be using consistent X height across your project in general, because you want your font to look like it all goes together. It's a part of a family. And so that's just an important rule of thumb to be aware of, is that for things to feel unified, an X height is important. I shouldn't have erased that. That's okay, I'll do it again. But the reason I was saying that is now that I'm going on to the second line, if my second line here is something like this, let's see. I'm gonna make it a little more dramatic. So I've got some problems here because this is so much smaller than this, right? I want it to be consistent across the board. So what I'm going to do is in a new layer, change my color to blue. I'm going to do kind of what I already did. Draw a line, make it straight. Draw another line and make it straight. Great, I'm going to get these kind of, there we go. And then I'll draw like a line down the center. You don't have to do all this, but this is just going to help me. Great, and now I've created a template for how big my letters should be. And so if I wanted to, I could duplicate this into all these spots, kind of following that line that I made, that curve. And in theory, though not probably in practice, I'll have to tweak this a little bit, but in theory, my letters should match up with those templates. So that's really helpful. So that's just making sure that our X height is going to be consistent. So the O, pretty easy. One thing I could do is I could, if I wanted, I could copy my look from up here, from the A, rather. I don't know that I like it because it starts to look like a 6. So I'll probably not do that for now. So here I've got negative, some kind of empty space that's going to be here, and then empty space up here. And what I like to do is I like to fill those in. What really makes for the most interesting compositions, in my opinion, is when things start to touch and overlap. But sometimes it's also helpful when things have their own space. I just find that I tend to do that a lot. It's kind of like I'm playing it a little safe and keeping things contained. But there's also some really cool compositions that come whenever you start to break those guys up, when they start to have their own, whenever they start to invade each other's space, you just get some really interesting letters that you wouldn't, I guess shapes, not letters, but you get some really interesting shapes that you wouldn't normally, which is fun. So in theory, this U, because it's essentially the same thing as the top of the Y, should kind of match my Y. And even though it's not exact to my stencil, or this little guy in the background, that really is okay, because we're wanting consistency. And so if your eye sees that these two are different from each other, it's going to say inconsistent. And if I'm designing a font, I would go back and really meticulously make sure everything's exactly the same. But that's really not what we're doing here. We're just having fun doing some hand lettering. And part of the joy of hand lettering is the imperfections, it won't be perfect. And digital can sometimes actually steal from that, because we can get things pretty close to perfect. And that's not always the best, I love when things are pretty close to perfect, but also it really can steal from the authenticity of a piece. Wow, that's a really wild R. We're gonna have our apostrophe or l'apostrophe in French. If you didn't know, I speak a little French. Little as in little, but I do love I do love French. If we look here, my office, I have a French flag on my wall because I just love France a whole lot. Okay, so I'm going to copy this E here. Make a duplicate. Okay, so this is important here. If I were to remove these, this does not look right, of course, because I have made my R is thinner here. So we have more space in this area than we do here. And we essentially want that to feel pretty similar. It won't be exactly the same, but we're really going for visual similarity. Like we want our eyes to be kind of tricked to believing that that space, or maybe not tricked, but we want our eyes to not catch something being wrong with that. And now that my E has come in a little bit, the extension of my R doesn't need to be so dramatic. So I'm gonna come back in and I'm gonna redraw this one. I really am enjoying this so far, you guys. I hope you are as well. Let's see. I'm gonna move everything down just a smidge. The reason I'm doing that is because it starts to make this space tighter. This space gets a little tighter, that gets a little tighter, and I like it feeling kind of tight and snug. This will be harder to do than it looks. Getting this to feel right is going to be pretty tricky, actually. We'll stick with that for now. And I like that it feels a little hard to read, which it's like, if it's words, isn't it supposed to be easy to read? No, it's not. It's lettering. It's supposed to be fun and creative. But oftentimes I do have to ask my wife, I'm like, hey, can you read this? Because I think it's really cool, but chances are the next person's going to look at it and say, like, I can't make sense of what you're saying. But who cares? It's fun. Okay, I really like where we're at here. This is really cool. Maybe you're enough, or just maybe you're, fill in the blank. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna draw my next letters here. Get my layers in order because that's helpful. Okay, so I've got a really expressive M and I've got a really expressive Y. So I want to make sure that my E feels like it fits in with that family, and it shall. Let's see. So obviously that's a little too much because my other letters aren't taking up so much space. They have some restraint. My Y is pretty big actually, but my M is not taking up too much space. I could maybe make it taller to complement my Y. The thing is, because my Y is kind of invading my space down here, I'm going to be squished with that E. So what I'm going to come back and do, so I'm going to adjust this Y a little bit. I'm going to scrunch him. And maybe we will move this whole piece up a little bit. The reason is I just want to make sure I have enough room for my enough. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, that could be a solution here. We're adding a serif on the top of my E. And I'm going to actually turn this a little bit. It's a little crooked. Okay, so we'll start with that. We're going to bring in our letters again with our different examples here. So that would be E, N, O, U, G, and we need one more for H. Okay. I like where we're going here. I do think that this guy is a little too low. There we go. It's my alarm. Okay. All right, so enough. So in theory, if you see this, the area that this piece hits, like right at the end of this, I'm not making sense. Let's see. So right here is where it connects to my line. In theory, the others should have the same thing. Like this one's sticking out too far. This one's a little bit too far. So I'm gonna actually come in and refine these just a little bit just before I get started. And this is more about following my my guide to make my kind of like stair step kind of effect. And it's not perfect. That first line that I drew for maybe is not perfect. So if it's not great, that's okay. But want to get a general idea. Okay, going in. So typographic stencil, I'm giving myself the information I'll need later to create the shape, but I'm not mapping out every detail. The main detail I'm leaving out is my thicks and thins. I'm not worrying about my contrast at this point. Gonna save that for later. And man, I really like these letters. They have a, I mean, even just like with this stencil, they have a lot of really pretty, it just like feels really delicate, which I like. Remember, our U is a little thinner. Okay. Man, a G is where I'm gonna get to have a lot of fun here. So start with a standard shape, just like an O. And then I just love these G's where they can have this expressive shape. Oh man, just so fun, so satisfying. We'll give it a little something. And we have our H here. I'm going to start from the bottom. I typically don't draw letters starting from the bottom, but the reason is I'm going to do a little flourish here. And that flourish is starting to use the space. My screen got dark for a second. I don't know why. It's going to be using that space that's empty right now. I don't like how angled this is. Like it's coming up too sharp. I think it should be a little bit more smooth and gentle. So I'm gonna redraw this part. Sometimes when you have lines when they're doing too much, it feels a little obnoxious. Like this, it's like a little too swirly. The way I have it now, it feels pretty subtle, which I like when things feel subtle. But this is really successful because we're getting to fill in a lot of this space. I'll remove our guides right now. I mean, yeah, this is pretty sick. I really, really like the way this is at. It does seem like oh, it's because I shrunk down my other ones. That's why these seem so big. But we'll come back to that. Okay, so we have this really interesting type here. I'm gonna tweak my maybe. So something that I see here is that at the bottom we have these extended letter forms that are filling up a good bit of space. Up here, it does feel like this is a little bit empty. So what I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna adjust my Y. The eraser, okay. We're gonna have a lot of fun, you guys. keep it for now. Might go back and change that. But I did a whole video, a live video about flourishes. So I think it was like our first or second. It was our first one. No, our second one. One of the two. So go back and check it out if you would like some more on flourishes. Right now, I'm just scratching the surface. I also, I think my mic is a little too loud, so I'm sorry if I'm busting your eardrums. Oh yeah, that's definitely too loud. Things I should have checked before. It's all good though. All right, so yeah, so we've got the beginning of this type. If we're going back to our shape back here, obviously the orange is not working, but when we bring these in, I think we'll have a really interesting composition working with our shape, which is going to be really great. Center it just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, that will just be really spectacular. And I think it's kind of cool that I felt a little insecure about this guy who is just so talented on YouTube, and I'm getting to use a skill that he taught and enjoying it, and then also making a statement like, hey, maybe you're enough. Like, I think it's a good combination, like taking what I feel insecure about and then saying, no, maybe you're enough. Maybe you're not. I'm just kidding, you are. But okay, so I have my stencil now and it looks great. I've combined my layers together so I can adjust my opacity here. And I'm gonna hide our little shape for now because we don't need that. All right, so we're gonna change off of our orange. I like drawing in shades of blue. That's just kind of my preference. And so we're gonna go a little fast and loose here is the goal. I don't want to spend too long trying to map out every single detail. I really want to be a little expressive with this and just kind of have some fun. Sorry, turn this down. So yeah, the main thing to remember, lettering 101, is that your down strokes are thick, your up strokes are thin. Down thick. I'm drawing that from the top, but ups are thins. Maybe I'm backwards. This is kind of a weird one because of how it's drawn. I think I actually drew them all going down. If you learned anything, I've also told you how to break all the rules. So we're gonna break the rules. In general, these are not gonna have too much contrast between their thicks and thins. I've also remembered that I've drawn these shapes in here, and so I can't make my letters so insanely thick that you can't make sense of those and they just get totally lost. So I wanna make sure that I'm not going too thick, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna work on doing what I've done before where I talk about working additively and reductively. And what that means is that I'm gonna get it all on there and then I'm gonna be able to erase some and then add some more and kind of go back and forth. I'm also gonna turn off my mic and let you just enjoy this stock free footage or no audio that I paid for. So enjoy the music and I'm just gonna work. Okay, so we have our first word. And honestly, it looks pretty rough. Like, this E looks like something out of my nightmares. But I am drawing with a really thick pen, and I'm just trying to get my letter forms out here. And then I'm gonna come back with my eraser and I'm gonna do a lot of refining. So save your judgment for later, and we're gonna keep working. Okay, so I changed the width of my pen to try to offset how thick the letters look up top, which is better because it's getting me closer to what I want, but also not better because now I'm having big inconsistency issues. So I don't totally know what I'm gonna do with that. Like, for the main thing I'm seeing it is this U and this Y. Like, look how massively different these two are. And if you remember well, what we talk about a lot is the contours, which would be the shape here and the shape here. So you see how different those two shapes are? Like, there's a lot more width on this one. It's just too wide in comparison. And so what I need to do is I need to fix that by adding in some more width here. That gets us started. It honestly is just like way too thin right now. It's okay though. Benefit of working digitally is you have access to these wonderful tools. That helps a bit. Well, we'll stick with that for now. I might tweak it a little bit more, but I just wanted to make note of that because I think that's important. Okay, so here we are. We've got some interesting letter forms. They're not there yet. They're not perfect. Not perfect by any means, but they are coming along. And I am getting tired. Oh man, maybe it's just my ADD. Maybe normal people can knock this out without taking a break, but gosh, my brain just starts going all over the place. What shall we do? I'm gonna keep working a little bit more and do some refining here, like I said I would. We're not gonna get to our finished product today, I don't believe, but we are gonna make some refinements that are gonna be important. As you can see, it is pretty messy, and if you look, our your and enough definitely look better than the maybe. Like the maybe is so thick, and that's also because as I was going, I was trying to establish what is my, like what's my word I'm trying to say, what's my look I'm going for, like how thick are the letters, how thin, and so I'm just gonna kind of come back and refine a good bit of these. And this part is messy. It's gonna look worse before it looks better, ladies and gentlemen. I'm especially like, I could be zooming in for the detail here, but I'm trying to stay zoomed out so that I can keep it comparative. Gosh, my words. This is what happens when I get tired. That I can kind of see the other letters and the other words off to the side to make sure that I am getting them down to like similar sizes. Otherwise, I'm just going to be guessing again. So like as I do this line right here, kind of get these shaped up. Then I'm going to pull back out, compare. I might go back and add a little bit more back in. I just want to make sure that I'm actually making them look similar now, as opposed to just randomly taking away or adding. I want to be a little more methodical with it. God, this A, nightmare, just a nightmare. Looks like you left him out on the street for a few days. This is what he comes back to, like, oh man, that's sad. Sorry, little A, you're gonna look better. Somewhat, take it. So it does look like one of the big differences is we still have some thick areas that match, like the Y here and the M, those lines, they both feel the same thickness relatively, but it's just the thins. There's a lot more variety that I started to incorporate with the thin areas. And so that's part of what I need to do, is to accentuate the differences between the thicks and the thins. Very important. And I'm not there yet, but Also, I don't know if you've noticed, but I stick out my tongue while I work, or I like purse my lips. It's like my thinking posture. It's kind of silly looking. See, so now I'm going a little too delicate, and I'm gonna have to come back and add a little bit more. It's all give and take, And as I'm looking at this, what I think we'll probably do to finish it, which so far everything we've done is in the iPad, but I might just bring this all into Illustrator and do it digital and kind of show you guys my digital process for vectorizing hand lettering, which is actually, there's quite a lot to be learned there. That's like a really, it's a difficult thing to learn. It took me a really long time to get a handle on it. But so maybe for next week, it'll be more in the computer, and more working with like really doing all the vectors, and like once it's in Illustrator, how do you preserve that hand-drawn feel, but also still clean it up a whole lot. We will see. tricky part that I kind of mentioned that I have the tendency to do is I'm sort of taking away, I think, a little bit more than I should be. So it's like I'm a little overzealous with my eraser at the moment. I need to make sure I'm not like pulling it way too far back to where now it looks different from the bottom. But the B is probably the best of the ones I've done so far. You know, I really just like this E. This is like kind of my hand lettering no-no. Typically I don't do this, but I'm just gonna copy and paste it. Actually, just cut it, my bad. I will delete this E and combine them together. And look how happy we are. Okay, so maybe we're almost to a stopping point. Oh, 1 second. I'm gonna do a quick break and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. I just had to make sure previously my audio has totally cut out and just made this horrible scratchy noise. And I wanted to make sure that was not happening, but we're good. We're good. Very glad. Okay. Maybe you're enough, man. Just want to let you know. Okay, so this is a good start. Man, some part of me still really loves the simplicity of the stencil, but it's also just because we haven't gotten to refine this guy as much. So once we do, I'm sure I'll feel differently. But yeah, so I think this is probably where we're gonna call it quits for today. But hey, we've got something really interesting that we've created. The letter forms are really interesting, which I like. Looking at it over here on my computer screen, I already see some things that I definitely will want to change, but why spoil that? We'll save that for next time. But for those of you that have tuned in, thanks so much. Oh, question. Hello. I'm so sorry I didn't see this. I don't know when you sent your question. You might have been waiting for a while. I can't see if you're still here. You're not. How do I find all of your clients, or how do my clients find you? Tune in next week for the answer. But anyway, this has been Learn Lettering Live. I hope that you have, sorry, I'll switch this. I hope that you've learned something in watching, or you've just been simply entertained. I'm open to that. But I am tired, and I've enjoyed this Friday afternoon with you, and I will see you again next week for Learn Lettering Live. Have a great day.